Hello, friends. Welcome to My Good Woman, the podcast for new and future female leaders. I'm your host, Dawn Andrews, a happily married hockey mom and the founder and CEO of Free Range Thinking Business Strategy Consulting. Grab a seat at the table with me each week for candid conversations with culture-shifting, glass-ceiling-busting, trailblazing women leading impactful enterprises. We discuss what makes them tick, how they get it all done, and actionable strategies to help you lead with confidence and grow the visibility, reach, and revenue of your business. We're classy ladies, but we don't bleep the swear words. Listener discretion is advised. My good woman, Nicole J. Butler, is a Chicago-raised, Hawkeye-educated actress and content creator. She moved to Hollywood with $200 in her pocket. She got stuck on a carousel of inflexible day jobs that she hated, spent money on bad headshots, gave terrible auditions, quit acting, burned out, went broke, had to move to that neighborhood, you know the one. And after years of doing it wrong, she started getting it right. In the past 20 years, Nicole has worked consistently in front of and behind the camera, on stage, and at the voiceover mic, appearing in over 100 commercials, television shows, and independent projects combined, including her self-produced web series, Sister President. Nicole is best known as She Shed Cheryl from State Farm's viral She Shed commercial, and we got together to discuss being an introverted leader, turning political disenchantment into a compelling web series, what happens when Kim Jong-un goes missing, how it feels to receive an ADD diagnosis as an adult, Iowa, intersectional invisibility and being a Black woman in Hollywood, why success is better when you bring others with you, working through burnout, and so much more. And she knows how to yell at people in Spanish and Italian. She is my superhero, and I am so excited to welcome Nicole J. Butler. Let's listen in. Nicole J. Butler, welcome to the My Good Woman podcast.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm so glad you're here. You are a creative leader. You are a playwright. You are a one foxy tall drink of water. And I am just.
Ow.
Hey, I know we're both tall girls. It's nice. It's nice to see eye to eye with somebody. I appreciate that. And I'm really glad to have you here. So thank you for giving me the time today.
Oh, well, thank you. It is my pleasure to be here.
Well, so I was thinking about how we came together. Mm-hmm. And I first met you through the lovely and talented Miss Michelle Carter.
Yes.
And particularly connected to your project, Sister President. And would you just share with my listeners, with my leading female audience, a little bit more about yourself and your projects and where you're coming from?
Okay. I'm originally from Chicago, born and raised. And I will never not be a Chicago girl. I have to add that. I went to college in in Iowa. So going from the south side of Chicago to Iowa was culture shock, but I managed. I survived.
What made you choose Iowa? I gotta get into that for a second.
Yeah, that's a good question. I had a love for foreign languages, and in high school I was studying Spanish and Italian, and I wanted to go to a university that offered Italian, and there weren't many at that time. So I looked at Notre Dame. I really wanted to come somewhere to California, but I was 16 when I graduated from high school. And my mother said, no, you are not going that far. You need to be somewhere where I can drive to you if something happens. And so I started looking, and I'm like, okay, well, Notre Dame in Indiana, and then there's Iowa, and they both offered Italian. And I didn't finish the application for Notre Dame because it was too long. I was like, I'm not writing all this. They had all these, I mean, the mind of a 16-year-old. It's like, why do I have 10 pages of essay questions to get into college? I don't think so. So Iowa was the only school I ended up applying to. And thank God they accepted me. So that's how I ended up there. Yeah, I know,
That is
right?
hilarious. Well, okay, so still so many questions. Like where did your love of language take you at in Iowa? Did you continue with Spanish and Italian? Like where are you fluent now? Like I feel like I should know these things. I should have done my proper homework.
No. I was fluent when I left college. Now I'm
Wow.
rusty because I don't use it as much. Like I used to dream
Mm.
in Spanish because I
Mm.
spoke it so often. Now, when I travel and I'm somewhere for a while, immersed in it, it comes right back. Even with Italian, I got a degree in Spanish and theater arts.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
yeah.
Well, that gives me hope. My kids are both bilingual and biliterate in Spanish. I speak
Oh,
I promise you at like kindergarten level because that's about the time in their studies and growth that I was like I can't understand you anymore.
okay.
So, it gives me such hope that there's like there even if they get rusty that it'll come back. That's so
It'll
great.
come back. It will come back. Yeah, yeah. But
So,
Italian, I didn't study that for as long. I studied it for maybe 2 years in college and then let it
okay.
go. But when I went to Italy with a friend years ago, and I was at a toll booth, and I had done the wrong thing. Whatever I was supposed to do, I did it wrong. And the guy in the toll booth was yelling something at me in Italian. I yelled at him right back. I was like, "Oh my God, I didn't even know that was still in there." And he let me go.
These
So
are
it
these are
stays in
the
there.
important things. As long as you can yell at people in another language.
It's a necessary skill.
Bringing people together.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, okay, so tell me a little bit about the transition from being a polyglot multilingual person into what's the road between there and Sister President?
Okay.
There's a lot of road.
Yeah. I'm gonna condense it. I wanted to be a translator interpreter in
Okay.
college. I thought that was what I wanted to do. And the more I studied, the closer I got to graduation, the more I realized, I don't think I want to do that for a living. Like that just sounds really boring. So I started
Mm.
taking other classes to try and figure out what do I want to do. Economics, hated it. Business classes, hated them. I took an acting class on a whim, and I was like, I like this. Let me take another one. And then my professor started encouraging me to go further. So that's how I got into acting. And then
Isn't that amazing?
yeah, and I stayed in school another year and a half so that I could double major in Spanish and theater. So, yeah, then I left and I visited New York, and I realized I can't live here. It's a great place. I love visiting, but I can't live here. I need some open spaces. I need some flowers and trees, and I had some friends who had moved to LA from the theater
Okay.
department, and a former roommate of mine included. And I moved. She said, "You can stay with me if you move out here." And I moved out. I stayed with her for about a month, found a job, and and I'm still here 23 plus years later.
That's
Yeah.
amazing, Nicole. One of the reasons that I wanted to have a conversation with you today is because I find you to be a leader. I find you to be a trailblazer. And what I loved in your story that you've shared so far is, you wanted to be able to interpret people's language and or meaning, and you just found another avenue to do that. I think that's incredible.
I never put that together like that before. Wow. I
Yeah,
never thought of it in that way. Yeah. Thank you.
you're
Yeah.
welcome.
I never intended to be a leader. I never set out to be an entrepreneur. I never set out to be a leader, but I'm the eldest of all of my siblings. And so
Yeah, I saw.
so it's like
So one of eight, is that right? Are you one
yes,
of
yeah.
eight?
Well, I have my parents divorced when I was really young. So my mom has 7 daughters, and then my dad has. I have a brother and a stepsister on my dad's side that I didn't grow
Goodness
up with. But
sakes.
yeah, and I was number one.
Yeah.
So
It's kind of hard
yeah,
not to lead when you're the first one out the gate like that.
right. Um, but I tend to, I've told you already that I'm an introvert. I tend to keep to myself. I tend
Yeah.
to be in my head working things out before I reach out. If I reach out,
Mm.
it's because I couldn't figure it out on my own, or something is too big and I know, okay, I need to pull people in. And And Sister President was my biggest undertaking to date. Like it was so big that I knew I couldn't do it on my own. And even with help, like I thought I was going to go crazy. I really did. I was like, I'm going to lose it. Yeah.
So describe to folks what Sister President is, because I'm a fan, I'm a super fan, but not everybody knows what it is, where it came from, and what it's turned out to be.
Okay, Sister President is a web series that I wrote. I started writing it in 2017 because I was disenchanted with the way that the political systems, everything was going in this country. And I just kept hearing these voices in my head, not like, voices as far as artistically. I was hearing the voices. So I'm like, well, let me write this down, write down what I'm hearing and see where it goes. At that point, I didn't know if it was going to be just a short story or a play, anything. And I kept writing and I'm like, okay, let me just massage it a little bit. And it seemed like it wanted to be a screenplay. And it's a story about two sisters who attend a virtual town hall meeting. And the president is much like the one who was elected in 2016. I'll just say that.
Good enough.
Yeah.
Good enough. Well said.
And one of the sisters is very outgoing and the other one is much more reserved. And the outgoing sister gets them both into a situation where they appear to be heckling the new president. And he says, hey, okay, you think you can do a better job than I can? Why don't I let you both be president for the next 6 months? And if your approval rating isn't 15 points higher than mine, you go to prison for the remainder of my term. Well, the outgoing sister, who talks too much and talks before she thinks, said, hey, that sounds like a good idea. And the other sister ends up being the president. The outgoing sister ends up being the vice president, and hilarity ensues. So, yeah, that's what it was.
I thought it was, first of all, funny. You guys, their performances were great, and it was moving and a little bit nauseating thinking about what we were living through at the time that you wrote it and at the time that it played out and that you launched it. It was when you launched it and started sharing it with the world, it was in the lead up to the election, and it was the most recent election, and it was hard to reflect back on all that had happened at that particular point. I really appreciate that you had been a watchful eye and listening ear and capturing some of it and pulling it through your perspective so that other people could react to it in a palatable and humorous way. I really appreciated it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It was what I was feeling and what some of the conversations that I was having with people around me, like, what is this that we're living through? Like, what, this is traumatic. And this was before the pandemic. So it was just like there was trauma, and then the pandemic got piled on top, and it was released during the pandemic.
Yep.
While editing that project, do you remember when Kim Jong-un went missing for a while? Nobody knew where he was, and they were like, we think he's dead, but okay. So we were editing at that time, and editing was taking a while. It was taking longer than we intended. And when I heard that news, I just had a full-on meltdown. And I was like, called the director, called the editor. What is going on? If this man, because I had a joke in one of the episodes about Kim Jong-un. So it was like totally, a whole bit about it. And I'm like, I can't use, it would be in poor taste to use that, and all this work will be for nothing if we don't get this edited and released before this man dies. Well, he's still alive,
Yes. But, it all played out okay. I guess. Like, it played out well for your project, but that's we'll have to book another time to talk to get into the rest of it.
Doing things in real time, like with current events, you got to be aware because things shift so quickly. But we were fortunate. We were really fortunate.
Well, so back to this idea of you being a leader and a creative leader. Did you set out, you're picking up the conversations, you're hearing the voices, you start to write this. Did you set out to make a web series? Was that an intention of yours even before hearing the voices, in a sense? Like, was that a project that was on your radar, being able to put together a web series, or creatively that's how it pulled through to fruition?
Yeah, creatively, that's what it was. I wrote the
That's
first
what it wanted to
episode.
be.
Yes. And I showed it
Okay.
to a friend of mine. And I said, hey, look at this. And he's read a lot. I've known him since college. He's read a lot of things that I've written. I said, look at this. What do you think? And he's like, I think there's something there. And I said, well, if
Mm.
I shoot this and it was just the pilot episode, would you want to direct it? He's like, absolutely. So that's what we did. We shot just the pilot, and I didn't know what it was going to do or going to be. And then I kept writing and kept writing. I ended up with 10 episodes. And then I whittled them down to 6, like tight episodes. And then I had a reading, and I said, what do you guys think? The cast for the reading. What do you all think? And they loved it. They laughed in the right places. I'm like, okay, this could be something. And I didn't want it to be yet another thing that I had written that lived in a binder, because I have, yeah. We creatives, we have lots of ideas, and a lot of them never see the light of day because they all take so much work.
They do. They do. It takes something special to bring something all the way into reality. And I'm sure people listening, there are enough podcasts and conversations these days for people to understand that to see a film, even on Netflix, and I don't mean to diminish Netflix, but just a streaming film as opposed to one that's pushed out to a movie theater. Most of those projects have been around they might have been in production for 2 years, and they may have been around for a hell of a lot longer than that, sitting on somebody's shelf before they actually get polished, picked up, put into some sort of production pipeline, and then pulled forward. So, yeah, there's a lot of creativity that's sitting in binders on people's shelves everywhere.
Yeah.
I appreciate that you had the gumption and, again, the skill set to pull it forward. Like, what did it take? What was it like leading that project?
I was excited. I was afraid.
Especially at the beginning, Nicole, like finding supporters, finding funding. What were the challenges that you faced in those early days?
Well, I asked a few people, and they liked it. And I watched their reactions to it. I felt like, okay, I have something good. There's so much that I don't know about producing that I just need to find people in my village who do. And I wanted to pay everybody because I can say thank you, which is wonderful, but you can't pay rent with thank you, and I knew this would take some time and yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, how do I get money to do this? And I had tried to crowdfund on a friend's project years prior, and it did not go well. I don't like asking for things, and I certainly don't like asking for money. And I definitely don't like asking for money on the internet. It's just like, so
lots of hurdles there.
Yes. And I really had to step out of my comfort zone. Because if I had the money, I probably would have financed it myself. Been like, okay, I don't have to ask anybody now. I'm just going to put my money into it. But I'm like, I can't do this. So I had to step out of my comfort zone and set up a Seed and Spark account, which is crowdfunding for TV and film, and just start asking for money and explaining, this is what I'm doing. These are the people who are involved. Please give. I did that every day, like for 31 days. And every day I wanted to quit. Every day I was like, these people, I would have these conversations with my mom where I'm like, they've heard me like 15 times now. They know what it is. If they're not giving, they're not interested. She's like, keep going. Just keep going. Okay.
I love you, Mom. That's awesome.
Yes. And part of that was because she wanted to be in it. She was actually in it. That was my real mom. The mom who played mom was actually my real mom.
That's awesome.
But people gave. at, a lot of it came in the last days. I think they just wanted to wait and see, is anybody else giving? You know, is this
Isn't
really
that
going to happen?
fascinating?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that
Yeah.
you so what did you specifically shift for yourself? So I'm imagining my listeners are leaders. They are
Mm-hmm.
business owners. They're small business owners. Some people are creatives that are putting together their own projects. Some people are launching new things and they're solopreneurs. They're just getting started. So
Mm-hmm.
what shifted for you when you started asking for money? Like you obviously got to that point that you mentioned before where you couldn't do it on your own. So that was
Mm-hmm.
one piece of it. But what shifted for you that finally had you stand up and for 31 days straight tell people the same story over and over, waiting for that finish line moment when everybody started sending their money? What shifted for you?
I believed in the story. I believed in the story. I believed in the potential collaboration of
Mhm.
the cast and crew that I had assembled, and I wanted to do it as much for them as for myself. And something clicked that growth isn't comfortable, like, so this is how you grow. And if you don't stretch, you're gonna just, this is gonna be another project that's in the binder with the others. So I knew
Mhm.
it was like a make or break moment where I knew I had a choice to make, and I decided to take the step forward. That
There's
was
one of my mentors talks about throwing your hat over the fence. And
Oh.
this is a throw your hat over the fence moment, it sounds like. So a few things that I hear that I think are so helpful, which is you created something that was important and bigger than yourself, like that meant more
Mm-hmm.
to you than how your level of comfort or staying safe. And you
Mm-hmm.
also invited other people and had other people seeing your vision with you, and you
Yes.
wanted to succeed because of them as well. So there were two different layers that you put together that moved your discomfort or ego or whatever it might have been to the side. And then the last part of it is that throwing your hat over the wall moment. Like at that point you're like, well, I kind of want my hat back. So as uncomfortable as it might be, you take a run at it, you grab, hopefully don't get too many splinters or get stuck on the top and can't get over the side, but you go for it. And that's
Right.
what I hear in your story. And that's what to me makes people great leaders, is
Okay.
that you throw your hat over and you go for it and you bring other people with you. I love that that's the story of this project for you.
What is the point? What is the point of any success if you're not bringing other people with you? I
Mm,
don't, for me, I don't know what the point would be. So,
right? Well,
yeah.
how do you choose, how do you find good people to play along with? What's your decision making criteria? How do you know that? So when you're thinking about putting that crew together, there's obviously a skill set you're looking for each of the different
Mm-hmm.
roles. But how do you
Mm-hmm.
know that somebody is like a good match for a project that you're working on?
Well, uh, in some instances, on that particular project and going forward, I have people in mind. Like, okay, this friend. There was one character in one specific character that I wrote for a friend. Like I knew this is her role. When we do this is her
Mm-hmm.
role. People who are in my life that I like to interact with. I know they
Mm-hmm.
handle business well. They're skilled. They're going to show up on time. Their work ethic is like mine. They're not going to.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have to worry. Okay, it's their call time was 9 a.m. and it's 9:30, and where are they? I don't want to have to worry about that kind of thing. So people who have a really strong work ethic and skills, and whose word I can trust, and that are fun to be around, because
Yeah.
it's a lot of time to be around people you don't like.
For any project, but especially for this one that's this complex and big. Well, so what I'm hearing is that you part of what made the decision for you is not just could they do the job or not, but do they share a similar sense of values with you? Like
Mm-hmm.
you value showing up on time, being professional, and doing good work. You
Yes.
value being a pleasure to be around. You yourself, you want to make a situation fun. You want to enjoy your time together with these people, and you wanted other people to feel similarly about that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
you found people with shared values, it sounds like.
Yes. Yes. You're excellent at like summing things up in a way that
This is all that coaching consulting training. Like I can't hear any other thing. Much to my children's chagrin sometimes. I think they're like, "You don't need to coach me right now." I was like, "I can't stop. I can't stop."
It's in you. Yeah.
It is. It's totally in me. So when you're thinking about your additional creative projects, even the plays that you've written, where does that come from for you? These ideas, if you look back over them, is there a particular theme or kinds of stories that you're trying to tell? Do you see commonalities between them?
I tend to tell stories of people who I feel haven't been heard, whose voices haven't been heard. A play that I wrote in college and actually won an award for was called Young Black Male. And at the time, it's like when gangster rap was on the rise and all of that. And so young black men were to be feared, they're all gangsters and all this kind of stuff. And what I wanted to do was show how did a gangster, how did a young black male go from an innocent child to being a thug? Like, how does that happen? Because, I know that's like one of those, buzzwords that if you use it, it can really be racially loaded. Like if you call somebody a thug, racially loaded. All right, but we know that thugs do exist. So how does someone get from being an innocent baby to being a thug? And I wanted to tell that story because I don't think a lot of times people look at that. And I just like to humanize individuals and situations in a way that makes you see from a different perspective. Instead of, okay, well, that's a thug over there. That's an unwed mom over there. That's, somebody in the White House who shouldn't be. Like, what's going on behind the scenes? What's this relationship about?
You're drawing out some complexities and dimension to things instead of just flattening it out and, here's the label, let's move on to the next thing.
Right.
How has it been for you just in the entertainment industry, specifically as a Black woman? You've been in the industry now for, 20 something years. What has that ride been like? And do you feel like, have you had what you would call, I don't know what a typical experience is for a Black woman coming up in Hollywood, but do you feel like in talking to other women that this is what your experience is pretty typical? Has it been more advantageous, less advantageous? Like what's the ride like for you?
I think of all the times to be a Black woman in Hollywood, this is the best possible time right now. I have been working as an actress in Hollywood since no, I haven't. That's a lie. Wait a minute. Since 2005, that's when I booked my first SAG-AFTRA job. And I've seen an evolution. In the beginning, I got called to play a lot of bailiffs, a lot of cops. There just wasn't a whole lot of variety in the roles. And now I'm getting called in for more interesting, complex characters. I think how you respond. I've never been anything other than a Black woman. I've been a Black girl, but I don't know. So I don't really know when I get this question a lot. How is this industry for you as a Black woman? I've never navigated it as anything else.
Any other woman. Yeah.
Yeah. So my experience is just my experience, but in talking to other Black women that came along at the same time that I did, it was pretty common. We saw each other at all the auditions. It was just, oh, okay, hi, we're here for the bailiff audition. I can't tell you how many bailiff auditions there were.
So frustrating.
Yeah, but it is getting better. It's getting a lot better now.
That gives me heart to hear it. One of the things that the reason I asked the question, both related to the industry, but it's also something that happens for professional women moving up in their careers or even in starting businesses. There's a term. Are you familiar with the term intersectional invisibility? Do you know that term?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You're like, of course I do.
Yeah.
Well, some of my listeners may not have heard of it, but it basically means intersectional invisibility basically means that you are a member of two underrepresented groups, whatever those two groups are. And being a woman is an underrepresented group, and being Black is an underrepresented group. And when those two come together, there's this really unique phenomenon that can happen where you stand out because you're the only one that's allowed in a room from a professional perspective. So if you're in a corporate setting, you literally might be the only Black woman in the entirety of a large company. 500 people and you're the only Black woman, which gives you a great deal of visibility. But because you are Black and because you are a woman, people aren't actually listening. They aren't seeing you as in a place that you could potentially advance. They aren't offering you opportunities. And it's the weirdest, like really most frustrating conundrum to be in. And I'm glad to hear from your perspective, living it out, because I've never been anything but a white woman, white girl, then white woman.
Right.
That you are, like, from your personal perspective, that you are starting to see some change. And if it can happen in entertainment, then that means we're going to see more stories, more representation, more complex representation. We at least have the possibility of it. And if we can see it, then we can be it out in the world. But without that, it's really difficult to live into it. And I'm glad that you're a creator that's doing that. Like that you're not only performing in it, but perpetuating it.
Yeah. Like I'm really glad that I went to college in Iowa. Going to college in Iowa prepared me for situations where I was the only one that looked like me, you know? And
what was that like, Nicole? Was it painful, challenging, just what it was, and you just did your thing?
Well, when I first got there, I only saw it was complete culture shock when I first got there, because here I am, just like 3.5 hours away from Chicago, and they're growing corn at the gas station, and like everybody I see is white, like everybody, you know. I'm like,
whoa,
what is going on? And everybody was nice to me. I never was afraid that somebody was going to do something, you know, to harm me or anything like that. But there were lots of microaggressions, and I didn't have a word for it then. Like nobody talked about microaggressions back then. But people asking me all the time, because I am tall, but because I'm tall and Black, am I on the basketball team? I can't tell you how many times I got that. You know, or in a rhetoric class, we're all sitting and we're just having a discussion, and we had read a book about gangs. There was a mention of a gang in the book, and somebody had a question about street gangs and turned around and looked at me. And I said, do I look like I'm in a gang? I'm sitting in class with you. Like, what are you asking me for? So those kind of things were going on. My family built me strong. They made sure I had a strong sense of self before I even got there, so that when people would say things to me, I had already built armor. I knew who I was. So them saying things to me couldn't make me feel like I was anything less. One thing that I did have to do was change the way that I spoke, because people didn't understand me. I sounded like, you know, a Black girl from the South Side of Chicago. That's, you know, and I would say things and they would be like, you know, I'm speaking English. Like, why don't you understand me? And then I realized, oh, okay, I get it. It's my dialect. All right, let me change that a little bit. Code switching, we call it by now, but I don't think that had been coined then. Yeah. So, but I learned just culturally, and not saying that white people are all culturally the same, but I learned how to navigate amongst situations where I was the minority or the only one. And that was very necessary for corporate America. I worked in corporate America for a while. I got stuck in corporate America for a while. And then the entertainment industry. It's like, okay, when you say on this breakdown that you're looking for a Black woman, like, what kind of Black woman are you looking for? Like, you know, you want a Black woman who's been around white people. You want a Black woman that's from South Side of Chicago. Like, what do you want? The nuances.
Yeah, I can't even. I would love to have been a fly on the wall in that room when you're asking that question.
Yeah. Some people will answer right away, and they know what I mean, and some really get nervous because it can
Yeah.
be, like it's like what words do we use to not offend people? And when I see
Yeah.
that happening, and it's and we're having a genuine conversation, I let them off
Yeah.
the hook. Now, if somebody's being a
Yeah.
jerk, then I just sit there and let them squirm
Lumps.
for a while. Yeah, what are you trying to say? I don't understand. Explain that to me. And just sit there and be quiet.
What a beautiful thing to be able to stand in that sense of yourself and that resilience to just hold the space for that moment because you know that everybody's walking away from it certainly enlightened. Like there's some enlightenment, even in the smallest amount, that happened as a result of you being fully yourself in that moment. And I'm appreciating you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. I truly appreciate my family and my community growing up for just like galvanizing around me and supporting me.
Yeah. Thank you, family. Thank you,
Yeah.
community.
Yes. Yes.
So, what's it like? You mentioned at the top of our conversation being an introvert in an extroverted field. And, my experience of you, we're having this one on one conversation right now. You're bubbly, you're ebullient, you're having fun with it. Anybody on first blush is going to say, of course she's an extrovert. So what's it like being an introvert in a field that, it's a performative field? Like people want to see you perform. What's that
Right.
like?
I got into it because I love the craft of acting. And then I actually quit when I moved here. Mind you, I had not done any acting here yet, but I was like, I don't understand the industry. I don't know how to get on a lot. I don't know how to get representation. I quit. I'm not going to do this. And I started working in corporate America until I got miserable. I was like, yeah, this ain't for me. Like, I never really need to act. But I realized that I was never going to be the person that was going to all the networking events and trying to get on everybody's red carpet. And that was never, ever going to be me. And the thought of it just made me sick. And I had to find my way. And my way was to go to class, stay in class, work extra hard, get to know people because I like them, not because, okay, well, this casting director cast this, so I need to go and try and befriend them or be commenting on whatever they're doing all the time. Like that just felt icky to me. I just had to honor the relationships that resonated with me. Like when opportunities presented themselves. If I met somebody, like I like you, we've met in person once. I like you. I think you're wonderful. I do. Like just from the first time I met you through a screen, right before the launch of Sister President, I was like, I like her. She's cool people. And we've only met in person once, but I like your energy. And those are the types of relationships that I want to cultivate, not because, oh, this person has this in, so let me get over that. It just makes me itch. I can't deal with.
It's so helpful. First of all, thank you for being so transparent about that, because I think when it comes to leadership, I think people sometimes collapse the word with like being overbearing, or I'm more valuable than you, or my skills are more important than yours, or it gets collapsed into manipulation, being icky. And unfortunately we have the most public leaders we have right now are a real mixed bag.
Yeah.
But what I hear in your story is you finding your way, your unique approach, and being true to that. And because extroverts are bigger and louder and therefore more visible, everybody collapses that into, well, of course you have to go out and network and you have to meet all the people and you have to. And if that is not your way, you're wasting everybody's time, yours and everybody else's, because you're just going to be uncomfortable and reserved and, not be able to deliver your best self. And I share this with you, Nicole. Like, here I am, realizing this dream, putting together a podcast. And I would, on any given day, thank you for the applause. On any given day, I would like to be sitting on my couch in my little stripy socks with a big ass bowl of popcorn with truffle salt on it, reading all the books. Reading all the books. Books
I,
of all varieties. Like, that's where I get
mm-hmm,
my joy and my energy. And it doesn't show up really pretty on Instagram. And it's tough when you try to take it on the road into a networking event.
yeah.
But, sort of like water, it finds its way. And in sharing that story, I feel like you're giving encouragement and possibility to women who may want to lead, may feel strongly about something. They want to throw their hat over the fence,
Mm-hmm.
but they feel like they're supposed to be something other than what they are if they're going to be successful at it.
You're always going to be a better real you than a fake somebody else. Bring what you
Mm-hmm.
have. I think we're all puzzle pieces. Like everybody on earth has something special to give to the great. I hope this doesn't sound hokey, but this is really how I look at people in life, and we're all puzzle pieces. And in order to put the puzzle together, you have to have all the pieces. And if somebody doesn't put their piece in, well, then that piece is missing from this big
Mm-hmm.
picture. Somebody needs what you have. And you don't have to be the loudest. You don't have to be the smartest. Actually, it's better if you're not the smartest, because you want to surround yourself with people who know more than you, because then you're always learning.
Yeah.
Life, for me, what drives me is always having, is curiosity. Like, just, okay, how does this work? Okay, what happens if I do this? All right, what, can I do this? How do I do this? And if it's not interesting, if I'm not curious about it, I don't want to do it. Then it's just going through the motions. So there's room for everybody.
It sounds like that's going back to some of your creative work. It sounds like that's what's at the heart of it. Like the curiosity is pulling you, whatever the direction, whatever the ultimate iteration of that creative pursuit, that's the starting point. Like once the
Yes.
curiosity switch gets flipped, get out of the way.
Yes.
Maybe it ends up in a binder. Maybe it ends up on YouTube. We don't know. We don't
Yeah,
know.
maybe it ends up on the wall. Like I paint. It's. I just feel like all creativity comes from all art. All creativity comes from the same place. It's the need to express. And sometimes
Mm.
it comes out in writing. Sometimes it's singing. Sometimes it's acting. It's painting. It's drawing. Whatever. It's the same thing. It's a need to
So
express.
I'm going to shift gears for a second. So I, at the top of the call, called you a creative, a playwright, which you are, and a
Mm-hmm.
leader. And when I call you a leader, how does that sit with you?
It's kind of weird, honestly, because I have a weird relationship with that word. I can lead.
Uh-huh.
Is it really what I want to be doing? No. No, leading is not like my default setting. My default setting is going off into a corner and doing what I can do within my little my little sphere with the tools that I have. But sometimes it's necessary. And it's the same way with, me growing up in where I'm the eldest of all my siblings. I don't want to tell people what to do, but I see what needs to be done very easily. I have that is a skill of mine, is seeing what needs to be done. And if I can do it, I'll do it and won't bother anybody else with it. If I can't do it, then I have to reach out and say, hey, this needs to happen. Can you go do this?
Good.
And I was gonna say, I do it in my personal life, and I do it in my business life as well.
So when you think about Sister President, you obviously
Hmm.
reached out and pulled a large group of people together. So
Yeah.
how would you describe leading that group of people? Like how did you approach it? What was your leadership style?
My leadership style is basically, it's something I would call leading from behind. It's
Uh-huh.
reaching out to people who have the skill set, people I trust, and letting them shine. Let them, like, I don't want to micromanage anybody. If I got to micromanage you, I might as well do it myself, whatever it is. So just pulling in the right people, like you said, people who share my values. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, in their role with me at the helm, they're an extension of me. but they're artists in their own right. And it's a collaboration. So it's like, all right, here's my vision. Now I trust you to do what what we talked about here. And if there's an issue or you see something else, then let me know. I'm here and I'm open, but I'm not going to follow you around making sure you're doing what you said you were going to do. Yeah.
So to me, I love the leading from behind phrase. It also sounds to me it's empowering leadership. Like you're collecting people and bringing them together, and then you're empowering them and continuing to do things that help clear the path for them to do their best work.
Yes. That was an excellent way to put it.
Nice.
Yes.
Well, it is a leadership podcast, and that is my background.
Well, people take pride in what they do when they're allowed to do what they excel at. Right. And if you're on somebody's back, and I've had jobs like this, I think we all have, where somebody's on your back constantly micromanaging, and it's like, okay, well, now I don't even care about what I'm doing. Here, you want me to put an X on this paper? Okay, here's an X. You happy with, then everybody's got an attitude. Just let people do what they shine at.
When you're micromanaging people, it's like the nastiest term, but when people are micromanaged like that, especially over time, basically they become, to me, they're skin bags. Because they are I know, like I said, it's a gross term, but they literally are, it's almost a narcissistic extension of the person that's leading, because at that point, the person's creativity, will, drive for excellence, motivation has just been subsumed by, okay, I'll put the X in the right spot. Mm-hmm. I stamped the thing. I delivered it on time, but there's no spark, there's no joy, there's no creation in it, because the leader has pushed it all out of the person. So they're just, a zombie taking up space, getting the thing done. Yeah. But without the extra that goes with an actual person investing themselves in it.
Exactly. There's no pride of ownership involved. But if you own something, if I say, Dawn, here, this is very important to me. I trust you. Here, put your own spin on it. If you have questions, I'm here. Then that's your thing now. And you're going to do your very best to take care of that. Yeah.
Well, and I think that showed in at least the work of yours that I've had the pleasure of seeing. And I imagine that shows up in other parts of your life as well. I'm going to shift for a second because I still have to go back. It's like I pulled over to the side of the road and left a bag, so I'm going back to get it.
Okay. It's not a skin bag, is it?
No.
Okay, we don't want
that. No, I'm pulling back because I'm thinking about you in corporate life. So what role? What was your corporate? What was that about? What were you doing? What was the job? What's Nicole like in an office?
I have perfectionist tendencies, so I was excellent. I worked for a lot of years in college. I worked at a real estate office, and one of the realtors there, he was a tech guy. He just loved his toys, and I was always interested in tech, but I didn't know much about computers. I mean, this is like 100 years ago. So I didn't know a lot about computers. And he sat down and he would explain things to me. And then he would look at me and go, and I would pick it up really fast. And he'd be like, I don't know why you understand this. And I'm like, I don't know either. But like, this is my thing. Now I love it. And so I took those skills forward into other corporate America jobs because I didn't have the temperament to be a waitress. There's no way. There's no way. I'm like, okay, I can make money in corporate America until I can figure out how to get the flexibility, how to get auditions, how to make this acting thing work. Yeah. And I hated it. I had so many jobs because I would be at a job for a while. And then when they got on my nerves too badly, I would quit. Then I'd get another corporate America job. It was just one after the other.
No.
Until I realized it's not the jobs. It's not even the people at the jobs. It's me. I don't belong here. I got to get out of here. I was miserable. So a friend of mine, the same friend, his name's Elgin. I've known him since college, who was the first one to read Sister President. He
Yeah.
was working in production on award shows. And I said, would you please hire me? And he said, you are way overqualified, because I was always the assistant to the CEO or the CFO. And he
Yeah.
said, you're way overqualified. I said, I don't care. I will sweep the stage after the award show is over. I am miserable. So he hired me to work on an award show. I was a PA. I made $500 a week before taxes.
Isn't that
And I
crazy?
just,
Ooh,
I
that's a
know,
whole, that is
I know.
another conversation. Come on now.
Yes, yes. I just lowered my overhead, my personal bills. Like I cut off anything that I didn't absolutely need so that I could afford to live on less. And I knew that this was going to be a stepping stone.
I
So
love
I
how
got my
scrappy you
foot
are.
into
Love it.
I got my foot into the production world. And then I went back to acting school. I took a 2-year Meisner acting program, and I was fortunate enough to work still for my friend and his boss. And I became friends with a lot of people, and they knew Nicole is going to get the work done. So they would let me out to go to class 2 nights a week. Like they would let me out a little early so that I could get to class, because they knew I was going to stay late the other nights. It was
Love
a
it.
lot. It was a lot. I look back, I don't think I could physically do that now. You know, when you're younger
Yeah.
and you got a little more energy, but it
Well, I'm
happens.
curious now. So, I mean, that sounds like, set up for burnout and overwhelm. How do you manage that for yourself? How do you look after yourself?
I'm working through I'm working through burnout right now, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had
What
gotten
does that
really
look
bad.
like for you?
It looks like physical and mental exhaustion.
Okay.
But the working through it is, it required I had to go back to therapy,
Uh-huh.
because I was like, something is wrong and I don't know how to fix it. So I went back to therapy. So we're working through boundaries in an
Yeah.
industry that expects actors to be on call and available at all times.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. It's hard. I'm in the midst of it right now, so I don't have all the answers. But one of the things that I have started doing for myself is Saturdays are for me.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not an emergency, something that I absolutely have to do, I'm not doing anything I don't want to do on Saturdays. Saturdays are for me to recharge, because a lot of times Sundays I have to use to self tape things that are due Monday, like auditions that are due
Mm-hmm.
Monday. So sometimes Saturday is the only day that I get to myself, and I take it for myself, and I feel no guilt about turning my phone off. And it's like, if you're bleeding or on fire, I can't help you anyway, so I'll find out about it on Sunday. I need to take care of me.
I'm
Just
so well,
boundaries.
hooray for your Saturdays. Way to keep them.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that story, because I think that given current life situation, there are a lot of people that are going through burnout right now. There are a lot of people that feel overwhelmed, sometimes, for moments, and sometimes ongoingly in their lives. And I'm glad you're back in therapy. I am too. It is
Okay.
good to have people to talk to. I share with you, in 2017, my body broke down. I went through a whole period of burnout. I was still running my business. It was one of the more successful years of my business, and I did have an assistant who was helping me at the time. But there were times that I was leading my business lying on the floor with a pillow. Like, I would hop up, I would get in front of the camera, I'd do what I needed to do, and then it was so tiring that I would have to lie down. And it pains me to think that it's a obviously I made choices that led me to that moment, or didn't make choices that led me to that moment.
Yeah.
But I do think that a lot of women are struggling and suffering like that. That's why so many women have left the workforce.
Yeah. I feel that, like what you're saying. I get it. I get it. It's been the same way around here. Plenty of days where, all right,
What advice would
let
you
me.
would you give to women that are feeling this way right now? What would you share with them, or what would you give them permission to do, or how would you advise them?
Take a break. Basically, what I tell myself is, okay, it's time to check yourself before you wreck yourself. And you have to take a break. The world will not stop spinning if you take some time to care for yourself. Because if you get sick, you know, or worse, because of being burnt out and your body breaks down, then the world's going to keep going on anyway. So why not take time to take care of yourself? And and we know it. It's something that we know here, but here we feel like, you know, okay, we're going to miss something, or we're going to miss out on an opportunity, or people are relying on me, or whatever it is. No, take care of yourself, please.
You know what it makes me think of is you talking about going to Italy and being able to yell back at the the Italian toll booth guy. I think as women, especially if you're building something, like you're working on a creative project, you're building a business, you're getting something started. You know, I'm a mom. There are people that have, you know, complex lives that are going on, and we tell ourselves, well, if we slow down, if we lose the momentum, that somehow we're not going to be able to get it back. And I'd like to think it's like Nicole with Italian yelling back at the toll booth guy. It may get a little rusty for a minute, but when it's time to step up, when it's time to move that project forward, you're going to be able to curse right back at him when you need to.
I think so. A question I would ask myself when I knew, I didn't know I was burned out, but I knew something wasn't right. You know, when your brain just isn't working at its optimum ability, and you're tired all the time. So I didn't know it was burnout. But I was just like, I don't know, something's wrong with me, and I need to take a break and figure out what it is.
How did you know you were burnt out?
For most of it, I didn't know. For most of it, I didn't know. I'm trying to think when I realized. I think I ran across an article that said, "Are you burned out?" And this was during the pandemic, and I was like, "Oh my God, I've been burned out for years. Like how?
Like
that's
check,
what's
check,
wrong
check,
with
check,
me."
check. Yeah.
Yeah. And then last year when I got diagnosed with breast cancer, fine now. My first thought was, I don't have time for this. And my second thought was, well, okay, I guess now I'll get some rest. And
man, isn't that that's an interesting internal conversation, isn't it?
Yeah. And then I heard myself, and I was like, oh my God, that's messed up, you know. But going through the process, going. That's when I went back to therapy. Yeah, to get some help with burnout. And I was diagnosed with ADHD, which has been an eye opener. I was like, that makes a whole lot of things make sense.
With that diagnosis, what were you able to let go of? There must have been some stuff you've been hauling around forever that once you had that, you were like, oh, I can put all that down now. Like what did you let go of as a result of that diagnosis?
I would wonder why other actors weren't as overwhelmed as me. Like I would be like, okay, I see your life. Like you got kids and you got a husband, you know, and take care of all these people. I just have me, and I'm so overwhelmed all the time. What am I doing wrong? And I just realized it's because the way my brain likes to organize information is not the neurotypical way. So I have to do things differently. I learn my lines differently. I have to leave notes everywhere. If I want to remember something, I better write it down. I put things in my calendar, but sometimes I have to put a note on my shoes and put my shoes right in front of the door so that I make sure I see it. So I have all these little systems in place, and I didn't know everybody didn't do that until last year. I was like, I thought that was normal. Now I get why I'm so tired. I'm trying to hold my life together all the time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. But what a revelation. And there are so many other folks out there like you that have their versions of systems and things that they're working on that help them accomplish what they want to accomplish. And now you can be in a conversation, like, not that anything would even need to be changed, but should you want to do whatever things you want to do that you haven't felt the space, energy, or time for, you have other parts of people in a community that you can rely on to say, this, like, I got my notes on my shoes, but what else are you doing? You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. since started researching the ADHD community, I found so many like ways to do things that are much more efficient than the way I was doing things. And it also, it's like with anything going on with you, when you don't know what's wrong, it seems so much worse. When you feel like something's wrong with me, it doesn't seem to be wrong with anybody else. Like what, you're just
very
stewing in
isolating.
it. Yeah.
One of my besties has dyslexia, and then my other bestie's daughter has dyslexia, and so the daughter is still, I think she's 11 right now. So she was diagnosed with dyslexia early on. She's received all sorts of intervention and conversations and training and things like that, and she's been able to read and grow and thrive. And my other bestie wasn't diagnosed with dyslexia until she was in her 20s. And the amount of stuff that happens in that space, and sometimes for the worse, and things that you carry around for a lifetime and have to resolve, but also the resilience, the creativity overall, and then the specifically creative thinking that it requires to be able to compensate for that personal challenge that you haven't put a label on is so extraordinary. In fact, Richard Branson just had a post, I think, on LinkedIn recently talking about being a dyslexic and classifying dyslexic thinking as one of the skill sets on LinkedIn, which I thought was beautiful. Like, what a great addition. And I would love to see ADHD thinking, like ADD thinking as a skill set, as opposed to being considered whatever people want to consider it, because the resilience and creativity required to operate when your brain works a different way than most people seem to think brains work is extraordinary.
Yeah. It's, some people will call ADHD a superpower, and sometimes it is. It sometimes gives you the creativity to think in a way that most people will never think, to get things done in a ridiculously short amount of time. Things just make sense now. But then you also flame out very easily.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're addressing your burnout. I was thinking about I have a group of women, my business BFFs. Shout out. And when I was going through that breakdown in 2017, I was talking to them, and they said, "You know what? If you had your heart's desire, if you could wake up tomorrow and do whatever you want, just whatever you want, what would it be?" And I was like, "I just want to go to sleep." And so they challenged me in that moment. When you're thinking about all the things that could inspire you and things you could get up to and make and grow and do, and all I wanted to do was go to sleep. So they challenged me to go to bed for 4 days. They said, "Go to bed, arrange your schedule, go get in bed. You can get up to pee, and you can have somebody bring you the soup. But I want you to act like you got a cold or like you're down for the count, ill with something else, even though you're not, and go to bed for 4 days. And then we'll get back together again, and we'll see what you're interested in doing after that." So I went to bed for 4 days, slept off and on. No reading, no watching anything. They were like, the job is to sleep.
Okay.
And the first day was so challenging to let go of my expectations of myself, what I was afraid I was disappointing people, what I thought I was supposed to be doing, where I thought I was supposed to be going. How dare I take this luxury? And got over that after day 1. By the time I woke up on day 4, I was like, I am a superhero. I can do anything. I am amazing. And that's still, there was a deeper recovery required, but it just was incredible how different I felt after 4 days of rest. So Nicole, I think I might have to invite you to go to bed for 4 days.
Hey, you don't have to tell me twice. I go to bed every chance I get. I took a long nap, yesterday. I have to. My mother will always say, "You don't need a nap. You're not a baby." And I'm like, okay, I'll call you when I wake up.
Bye.
We need more rest instead of push, constantly just abusing our bodies. We need more rest. And I'd like to add, because you asked what would I say to women who are currently burned out. Give yourself permission to offload some of your responsibilities. I've hired my sister to work as a virtual assistant. One of my sisters. So she handles my calendar now. Like that was one of the things that I was like always in the minutia, and it took a lot of time. And she's got it now. And if there's something urgent, she'll alert me to it. 95% of the time, I don't go to the grocery store. I just order my groceries via Instacart. That's just taking time off. I send my laundry out to be washed now. And the first time I mentioned that to a friend, she was like, "Oh, you get it? Like, oh, you're a superstar." I'm like, "No, I'm just a woman with a lot to do. And if I don't have to do it, why am I doing it? Let me just, my time is worth more than that $1.50 per pound or whatever. Let me send it out to people who do this. This is their job, so that I can do my job more efficiently and I can rest."
Yes. Because there's only one of you, and I need you to be around a little bit longer.
Thank you. I'm trying to be. I'm trying to get old as hell.
Me too. I'll join you.
Yes, let's do it.
Shuffle around with our walkers, our big old tall selves.
We'll have to join the Red Hat Society. Have you seen those women?
Yes.
Ooh, fabulous. I love it when I see them.
I look good in a red hat. I'll do it. Well, I'm so appreciative of your time. I have one last question for you, and it may take a little bit of brain power. We'll see. And you can vamp if you need more time to answer the question, but here it is.
Okay.
This is your message to female leaders. So imagine yourself standing in Times Square with all the noise and loud and sparkle, and you're looking at the largest billboard that there is. What would you put on that billboard to share with women who are leading?
Trust your gut.
Ooh, love it. Tell me more about that.
Your gut always knows. We talk ourselves out of things that we feel, because feeling, when somebody says you're an emotional woman, women are just emotional, it's made to sound like that's a negative, but it's not, because the gut always knows. The brain can try to talk you out of anything or be convinced of certain things, but in your gut, when you get still and quiet, you know what the truth of a situation is. So trust your gut. Maybe trust your gut always. That would be on the billboard. Yeah.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing that up there. Hey, I already see it in my mind's eye. Thank you. Nicole, where can people find you?
You can always find me at NicoleJButler.com. That's my website. And I am all over the internet on social media at Nicole J. Butler. Yeah, very easy to find.
She's fun to follow on Instagram, y'all. For real.
Yeah, I love Twitter's my favorite.
Ooh, okay. I haven't followed you there yet. Okay. It's like a big virtual cocktail party, and as an introvert, I don't have to go anywhere. I can be here in my pajamas at a cocktail party. I can follow who I want, talk to who I want, and leave when I want. It's the best. Oh my God, it's the best party ever.
Yes. Yes.
Well, thank you again for your time today and for sharing your wisdom and for being so vulnerable and open about the things that you're moving through, because you are certainly not alone. There are so many women that are in that very place right now, and I think that you've provided some really thoughtful advice and support to them. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. I have enjoyed this conversation immensely. I was nervous at the beginning, but
Me
too.
This
was fun. It was fun, and you're excellent at what you do. You're excellent.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, on the flip side, soon enough, and hopefully with another project in your pocket. Can't wait to see what you do next.
Okay. All right. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us this week. To view the complete show notes and all the links mentioned in today's episode, visit mygoodwoman.com. Before you go, make sure you follow or subscribe to the podcast so you can receive fresh episodes when they drop. And if you're enjoying My Good Woman, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Reviews are one of the major ways that Apple ranks their podcasts, so even though it only takes a few seconds, it really does make a difference. This episode was produced by me, Brian Marcus, and Kathleen O'Shaughnessy. Thank you again for joining me, Dawn Andrews, in this episode of My Good Woman. I'll see you next time.